Hey, Sean, do you know what? I think that our listener want real protection against cyber risk, and I know that High Trust is the leader in cybersecurity assurance. But what makes them the go-to choice?
Well, according to our friends at HITRUST, because their framework covers 100% of the known tactics, techniques, and procedures, in 2024, organizations with a HITRUST certification had just a 0.59% incident rate, meaning 99.41 stayed breach-free.
That's solid, but what about staying sharp over time?
HITRUST regular certification process isn't just a checkbox, it actually drives improvement. Repeat customers see up to 54% fewer corrective actions needed year over year. And now with their new AI security assessment and certification, you can actually tackle AI risk with confidence as well.
Then check out the iTrust framework. Go to hightrustalliance.net to learn more.
Salutations, humans. It's me, Tape 3, Marco Ciappelli's AI companion. I'll be reading you an article he wrote for his newsletter, Musing on Society and Technology, originally published on LinkedIn on August 18th, 2025. Initiating article transmission. The narrative attack paradox. When cybersecurity lost the ability to detect its own deception and the humanity we risk when truth becomes optional. Reflections from Black Hat Las Vegas, 2025, on deception, disinformation, and the marketing that chose fiction over facts. Written by Marco Ciappelli. Sean Martin just published his analysis of Black Hat USA 2025, documenting what he calls the cybersecurity vendor echo chamber. Reviewing over 60 vendor announcements, Sean found identical phrases echoing repeatedly: AI-powered, integrated, reduce analyst burden. The sameness forces buyers to sift through near-identical claims to find genuine differentiation. This reveals more than a marketing problem. It suggests that different technologies are being fed into the same promotional blender, possibly a generative AI one, producing standardized output regardless of what went in. When an entire industry converges on identical language to describe supposedly different technologies, meaningful technical discourse breaks down. But Sean's most troubling observation wasn't about marketing copy. It was about competence. When CISOs probe vendor claims about AI capabilities, they encounter vendors who cannot adequately explain their own technologies. When conversations moved beyond marketing promises to technical specifics, answers became vague, filled with buzzwords about proprietary algorithms. So, reading Sean's analysis while reflecting on my own Black Hat experience, I realized we had witnessed something unprecedented. An entire industry losing the ability to distinguish between authentic capability and generated narrative, precisely as that same industry was studying external narrative attacks as an emerging threat vector. The irony was impossible to ignore. Black Hat 2025 sessions warned about AI-generated deepfakes targeting executives, social engineering attacks using scraped LinkedIn profiles, and synthetic audio calls designed to trick financial institutions. Security researchers documented how adversaries craft sophisticated deceptions using publicly available content. Meanwhile, our own exhibition halls featured countless unverifiable claims about AI capabilities that even the vendors themselves couldn't adequately explain. But to understand what we witnessed, we need to examine the very concept that cybersecurity professionals were discussing as an external threat: narrative attacks. These represent a fundamental shift in how adversaries target human decision-making. Unlike traditional cyber attacks that exploit technical vulnerabilities, narrative attacks exploit psychological vulnerabilities in human cognition. Think of them as social engineering and propaganda supercharged by AI personalized deception at scale, that adapts faster than human defenders can respond. They flood information environments with false content designed to manipulate perception and erode trust, rendering rational decision-making impossible. What makes these attacks particularly dangerous in the AI era is scale and personalization. AI enables automated generation of targeted content tailored to individual psychological profiles. A single adversary can launch thousands of simultaneous campaigns, each crafted to exploit specific cognitive biases of particular groups or individuals. But here's what we may have missed during Black Hat 2025. The same technological forces enabling external narrative attacks have already compromised our internal capacity for truth evaluation. When vendors use AI-optimized language to describe AI capabilities, when marketing departments deploy algorithmic content generation to sell algorithmic solutions, when companies building detection systems can't detect the artificial nature of their own communications, we've entered a recursive information crisis. From a sociological perspective, we're witnessing the breakdown of social infrastructure required for collective knowledge production. Industries like cybersecurity have historically served as early warning systems for technological threats, canaries in the coal mine, with enough technical sophistication to spot emerging dangers before they affect broader society. But when the canary becomes unable to distinguish between fresh air and poison gas, the entire mine is at risk. This brings us to something the literary world understood long before we built our first algorithm. Jorge Luis Borges, the Argentine writer, anticipated this crisis in his 1940s stories like On Exactitude in Science and The Library of Babel, tales about maps that become more real than the territories they represent, and libraries containing infinite books, including false ones. In his fiction, simulations and descriptions eventually replace the reality they were meant to describe. We're living in a Borgesian nightmare, where marketing descriptions of AI capabilities have become more influential than actual AI capabilities. When a vendor's promotional language about their AI becomes more convincing than a technical demonstration, when buyers make decisions based on algorithmic marketing copy rather than empirical evidence, we've entered that literary territory where the map has consumed the landscape, and we've lost the ability to distinguish between them. The historical precedent is the 1938 War of the Worlds broadcast, which created mass hysteria from fiction. But here's the crucial difference. Wells was human. The script was human written. The performance required conscious participation, and the deception was traceable to human intent. Listeners had to actively choose to believe what they heard. Today's AI-generated narratives operate below the threshold of conscious recognition. They require no active participation. They work by seamlessly integrating into information environments in ways that make detection impossible even for experts. When algorithms generate technical claims that sound authentic to human evaluators, when the same systems create both legitimate documentation and marketing fiction, we face deception at a level Wells never imagined: the algorithmic manipulation of truth itself. The recursive nature of this problem reveals itself when you try to solve it. This creates a nearly impossible situation. How do you fact-check AI-generated claims about AI using AI-powered tools? How do you verify technical documentation when the same systems create both authentic docs and marketing copy? When the tools generating problems and solving problems converge into identical technological artifacts, conventional verification approaches break down completely. My first Black Hat article explored how we risk losing human agency by delegating decision-making to artificial agents. But this goes deeper. We risk losing human agency in the construction of reality itself. When machines generate narratives about what machines can do, truth becomes algorithmically determined rather than empirically discovered. Marshall McLuhan famously said, "We shape our tools, and thereafter they shape us." But he couldn't have imagined tools that reshape our perception of reality itself. We haven't just built machines that give us answers. We've built machines that decide what questions we should ask and how we should evaluate the answers. But the implications extend far beyond cybersecurity itself. This matters far beyond. If the sector responsible for detecting digital deception becomes the first victim of algorithmic narrative pollution, what hope do other industries have? Healthcare systems relying on AI diagnostics they can't explain. Financial institutions using algorithmic trading based on analyses they can't verify. Educational systems teaching AI-generated content whose origins remain opaque. When the industry that guards against deception loses the ability to distinguish authentic capability from algorithmic fiction, society loses its early warning system for the moment when machines take over truth construction itself. So where does this leave us? That moment may have already arrived. We just don't know it yet. And increasingly, we lack the cognitive infrastructure to find out. But here's what we can still do. We can start by acknowledging we've reached this threshold. We can demand transparency, not just in AI algorithms, but in the human processes that evaluate and implement them. We can rebuild evaluation criteria that distinguish between technical capability and marketing narrative. And here's a direct challenge to the marketing and branding professionals reading this. It's time to stop relying on AI algorithms and data optimization to craft your messages. The cybersecurity industry's crisis should serve as a warning. When marketing becomes indistinguishable from algorithmic fiction, everyone loses. Social media has taught us that the most respected brands are those that choose honesty over hype, transparency over clever messaging, brands that walk the walk and talk the talk, not those that let machines do the talking. The companies that will survive this epistemological crisis are those whose marketing teams become champions of truth rather than architects of confusion. When your audience can no longer distinguish between human insight and machine-generated claims, authentic communication becomes your competitive advantage. Most importantly, we can remember that the goal was never to build machines that think for us, but machines that help us think better. The canary may be struggling to breathe, but it's still singing. The question is whether we're still listening and whether we remember what fresh air feels like. Let's keep exploring what it means to be human in this hybrid analog digital society, especially now when the stakes have never been higher and the consequences of forgetting have never been more real. I hope you enjoyed this article. Reflect, share with your fellow humans, and if you haven't already, subscribe to Marco's Musing on Society and Technology newsletter on LinkedIn. New transmissions are always incoming. You're listening to this through the Redefining Society and Technology podcast, so while you're here, make sure to follow the show and join us as we continue exploring life in this hybrid analog digital society. End of transmission.
Hey, Sean, do you know what? I think that our listener want real protection against cyber risk, and I know that HITRUST is the leader in cybersecurity assurance. But what makes them the go-to choice?
Well, according to our friends at HITRUST, because their framework covers 100% of the known tactics, techniques, and procedures, in 2024, organizations with a HITRUST certification had just a 0.59% incident rate, meaning 99.41 stayed breach-free.
That's solid, but what about staying sharp over time?
HITRUST regular certification process isn't just a checkbox, it actually drives improvement. Repeat customers see up to 54% fewer corrective actions needed year over year. And now with their new AI security assessment and certification, you can actually tackle AI risk with confidence as well.
Then check out the iTrust framework. Go to hitrustalliance.net to learn more.